All right, this week we're going to show you around the Sunken Road and Marie's Heights area in Fredericksburg. All right, so we are here with John Hennessy, the chief historian of the Fredericksburg and Spotsylvania National Military Park. And John is a wealth of information on the Civil War history of Fredericksburg and all aspects of Fredericksburg history. We asked him today to show us around the Innes house here off of Sunken Road and just generally around this beautiful property, Sunken Road, Marie's Heights. John, thanks for being with us today. Why don't we start by telling us about this house?
So this house is a rare survivor because, number one, it was not a big grand house. It's very modest. It's very much a kind of a lower middle class house, and not a lot of these places survive. But it was also a witness. It was built almost brand new at the time of the Civil War, and stood along the Sunken Road here during the Great Fighting here on December 13th, and it bears the scars. People come, they peer inside the windows. Today, you're lucky. We're going to be able to go inside and take a look.
Great. Well, let's go check it out.
All right.
All right.
So, people walk by this house. A lot of them don't give it much of a second look, but when you look closely, when you come inside, you realize that this place is just ravaged by war. Park Service received this house in the 1970s, and this central partition wall was plastered over at the time. No one knew what was under it, and when the architects started to peel away the plaster, they discovered this partition wall was just pockmarked with bullets.
Wow.
There's somewhere, I think, 60, 70, 80 bullet holes in this wall. And what's interesting about it is, too, one, you can see if you look closely, you can see the direction from which each bullet came. But number two, and this is really kind of stunning, is this wall stands kind of parallel to the line of fire. It's not perpendicular to the line of fire, so imagine what these walls look like. They must have just been absolutely perforated by
Right.
bullets. But of all the houses in America that I've ever seen, I'm not sure there's but maybe one or two that has as much visible battle damage in it as this one does. Most of the battle damage in Fredericksburg, and virtually every house from the time, was damaged. Most of that's been repaired or covered over, or exists only in the rafters of people's attics. This is the most vivid example that there is.
Wow. So were the front walls redone to the point where you can't see the bullet holes don't?
There are a few places where there are bullet holes on some of the trim outside,
Yeah.
but clearly they ended up having to replace most of the clapboard siding. The house next door, Martha Stevens' house, which no longer stands, it burned in the early 1900s. That house had, by one account, between 2,000 and 4,000 bullet holes.
Wow.
In the exterior of the wall.
Wow.
I mean, literally the Confederate line is 15 feet away from where we're standing here. The Union lines, of course, came across the field that is now this neighborhood out here. This was an awful place, and this wall is testimony to how awful it was.
Yeah. Where was the family during all of this?
Well, we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't even really know who was living in this house.
Okay.
It was owned by Martha Stevens, who was an independent woman. She owned her own. She owned three or four different properties, including this one. She lived next door. She owned 90 acres out in Spotsylvania County. She never engaged in a formal marriage ceremony. She was a common law wife of a man named Stevens, but she was the owner of this house. We don't really know what the family did during the battle. She became something of a heroine later after the war, when she asserted her care for Confederate soldiers and was Confederate veterans often came here to pay homage to her for her efforts. But she owned the house, and like a lot of individual families, we don't know necessarily what they were doing during the battle. Most, and certainly those who lived out along the Sunken Road, left. This was the most dangerous place on the continent on December 13th, 1862.
All right, so now we're standing on the Sunken Road, which was where very heavy fighting took place during the Civil War. It's a beautiful amenity that's now pedestrian only between Hanover Street and Lafayette Boulevard. So we're standing between the famous statue of the Angel of Marie's Heights and and Brompton, the home of the president of the University of Mary Washington.
So before the Civil War, this was the I-95 of the day. This was the main route out of town, south to Richmond. And until 2004, cars ran up and down this street. And then in 2004, the city decided to close the road, and we were able to reclaim it for history's sake. And so we're standing in the section of the road that is bordered on one side by the original stone wall that was built, the retaining wall that kind of retains the sunken portion of the road here, as you can see. And it made a perfect defensive position for the Confederates here, with the infantry down here in the road up against this wall. If you've ever wanted to go to a battlefield or a place and know you're standing exactly where things happen, this is one of those places. And then with the Confederate artillery up on the heights over here. Marie's Heights, named after John L. Marie and the family who owned and prospered at Brompton for many, many years. Brompton was later used as a field hospital. There's some tremendous photography of Brompton taken during the Civil War. I think when America thinks of Fredericksburg, and they think of the Battle of Fredericksburg, this is what they think of. They think of the sunken road. They think of Marie's Heights. They think of the statue of Richard Kirkland over here, the angel of Marie's Heights, who climbed over the wall after the fighting was over to give comfort to fallen Union soldiers out in the field here. A very powerful story. So this place that was once as horrific as any place you can possibly imagine is now actually one of the nicest places in the entire city. People walk through here all the time. We're thrilled to have them. We just hope that they get a little sense of why this place matters to America. People come from all over the world to see this place.
So that'll do it for this week's edition, and tune in soon for part 2, which will feature Marie's Heights. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.